What's good, YouTube? I'm back with another video. Today, you talk about Nick Fuentes talking about JD Vance in Iran. I'm gonna get his last name correct one day, but let's listen to what he got to say.
I think there should be a deal to end the war. I want the war to end, but
for sure,
they're not getting it done, and it may be impossible. And now Vance is going to get blamed for it. You couldn't stop Trump from getting us into the Iran war, and when you tried to put your face all over the peace deal, you couldn't get the deal either. So we're stuck in this, and we're going to be dealing with this into 27, and it's going to fall on Vance, and good. I hope it does.
The restarting of the war in Iran and the crumbling of the Iran MOU framework that called for a ceasefire means that the political ambitions of JD Vance are totally destroyed. That's what Nick Fuentes is arguing here, the man who put himself at the forefront of diplomatic engagements with the Iranians has seen those efforts crumble in front of his face, and it doesn't bode well for his 2028 political ambitions for president. But Nick is also arguing that there's a beneficiary of this from within the Republican Party. Not sure I agree with him on that, but we'll explore it in this clip. Let's check it out. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hype it if you can.
The other angle I wanted to get into with Iran, and this is maybe less to do with the situation in the Middle East, this is more of a domestic political story, is how JD Vance is actually the biggest loser in this entire debacle. When the war started, JD Vance was nowhere to be seen. You remember this?
Yeah.
JD Vance is always everywhere. He's always at a photo op. He's never met a camera he doesn't love. He's always giving interviews, always trying to impress everybody with how based he is, how he talks like us, and he's just like us. He even published a new book recently. But when the war in Iran started, he was nowhere to be found. He disappeared. He was in hiding. And why was JD Vance in hiding? It's because, of course, he has presidential ambitions of his own. He wants to run in 2028. And he knows, like we all do, that
he knows if he support Israel, he's not going to win.
This war is a catastrophe. We are strategically being defeated in the war. And not only that, but it's causing an economic crisis. And it's going to get worse and not better. This is going to have major ramifications for us and our foreign policy in every part of the world. And it's also going to have major ramifications for the economy as well. Long-term ramifications. And we're not going to start to see these things until next year. Coincidentally, when the presidential election is really going to start. The presidential primaries,
midterms is pretty much already went through. It's about right now, but probably beginning of 2027, people are going to start talking about presidential rates. People are going to start bringing it up. But when they get like June, July type, around August, oh yeah, it's straight politics. Straight, the internet going to be flooded with politics. Some are going to be flooded with politics.
Are going to start in, let's say, June 2027 at the latest. And so what Vance is anticipating is that next year, when he enters the Republican primary for the presidential election, he's going to be asked by the press and in the presidential debates, where were you and what did you say when the war in Iran started?
Absolutely. JD Vance is something of a shadow vice president. He also disappeared during the Epstein scandal, made very few comments about that, very few public appearances, tried to not out there trying to spin it in any particular direction, just backing the president, but he kind of disappeared over the Iran war too. Now, there were selective appearances that we commented on and clipped on this channel where JD Vance was saying stuff like, well, they have a nuclear threat and we have to prevent them from acquiring nuclear weapons, effectively propagandizing in favor of this war, and also warning about the absurd prospect of Iranian nuclear vests going off, some of the most absurd propaganda in this entire drumbeat to war. But he had disappeared a lot until the MOU was signed, because if you remember when the MOU was signed, he was part of the diplomatic engagements in Switzerland and Islamabad and some other places, I believe, that led to those agreements. He wanted to throw himself at the forefront of the peace deal to take credit for that and bring it home to the voters in 2028. And he could say, hey, you know, I did what I could to support the president, but I was at the forefront of solidifying peace. Well, this has crumbled, and that has hurt his political ambitions. He couldn't look worse from this now because of how this has happened. They threw him out there with Rubio staying home, and it's crumbled. The war is back on. It's been on for the last week or so, and it doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. It does hurt Vance in so many ways, and no matter how much Vance tries to get away from it.
You know, we might be knee-deep in a recession next year. We might be in the middle of a major ground war next year. It might be a complete catastrophe. Might be the worst-case scenario. And they're going to say, why didn't you prevent it? You're the vice president. How can you tell people to vote for you when you got us in this mess? You either were in favor of it, in which case you own it, or you were powerless to stop it, in which case, why would we think you could do better as president?
Yeah.
So Vance and all of his allies, by the way, they all know he's got an Iran war problem. In 2028, he may even be removed from consideration because he's going to be seen as owning the Iran war. He's going to be blamed for it. So what has J.D. Vance's strategy been? He thought that if he hid and if he left the public eye when the war started, if he just wasn't visible, I mean, he's literally hiding, saying, if they don't see me, I won't get blamed for this. He thinks that, however, if he emerges 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks into the conflict, and he's able to negotiate the peace deal, well, maybe he will not be able to say that he prevented the war, but he will be able to take credit for ending it. That's the big idea. And I'm going to tell you what his answer is going to be. I'm going to predict the future again. Watch.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. If he stays in the race and the Iran war do not end, they're going to blame him fully like it's your fault we in this war. If the war ends before he start doing his campaign, he's going to take full credit on, I'm the one that ended the war. Double edge is a two, it's 50-50.
2027, he'll be on the debate stage. Or he'll be asked by the press, Mr. Vance, Vice President Vance, when the war in Iran started, you were in the room when it happened. Why were you not able to prevent the war? And what did you say to President Trump? When did you support it? Or when did you stop supporting it? And why should voters give you a chance if you were unable to prevent the war?
Yep.
And Vance is going to say, well, my job as the vice president is to support the president. That's my job. Everybody knows I'm the vice president. My job is to support the policies and positions of the president of the United States. And that's what I did. He's going to say, Dana, whoever it is, Jake Tapper, my job was to support the policies of the president of the United States. And that's what I did. I had my doubts. I had my reservations, but my job was to support the president.
Yep.
But I led the diplomatic effort in Islamabad, and I led the effort in Switzerland, and I was there in Qatar, and we tried to get the best deal that we could. We sought prosperity over war, but that's going to be the answer.
That will be his answer for sure on that debate stage. That's the answer he will give. But again, Vance is the shadow president that thought he could hide from this. But no, it's tarnished his ambitions. So has the Epstein scandal. So has this entire disastrous presidency that once carried forth an unprecedented political alliance that drew people in from the left, drew in Robert F. Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard into the fold, and just has been completely schismed by Trump over especially the Epstein scandal and the Iran war. He's going to have to answer for that. But he thought hiding could fix it. But then when he emerged, what happened after that made him look even worse in some ways. So this truly does damage his record. I don't think he's going to pull the wool over all the voters' eyes with an answer like that, though he will give it. But yeah, Nick's right. Vance hid. He was in more conversations with Peter Thiel, as it turns out, it seems to me, over this last stretch of months than he ever was in Washington cabinet meetings.
And so to that end, early on, when the original ceasefire was promulgated in April, it was J.D. Vance that led the delegation to Islamabad, and he pushed for it. He wanted it. There was intense fighting inside the White House. Vance desperately wanted to go to Islamabad to work out the peace deal. And other elements in the White House that didn't like him, they went to the press and said, no, President Trump and Steve Witkoff are leading the process, not J.D. Vance. But Vance went. And then when the MOU came out, it was Vance that went to Islamabad. It was Vance that went to Switzerland for the first round of negotiations. It was Vance that went on the morning shows 4 weeks ago to defend the deal. He went on all the morning shows 4 weeks ago, almost to the day, to defend the plan and say, we're going to give the Iranians an opportunity, and this might be turning over a new leaf. It's a new era in U.S.-Iran relations. And
yeah, that's exactly what happened, and it makes you wonder whether this was orchestrated by the more ardent war hawks within the administration to get him to do this, and then intentionally sabotage the MOU, not just only for Israel's bidding, but with a dual purpose of tarnishing J.D. Vance's political aspirations in 2028. You can see a rival faction of neocons and Israel firsters, that some of which don't like J.D. Vance, even though he is ultimately beholden to the Israel lobby, beholden to this war because of his attachment to this administration, would want to do to him, such to elevate someone like, say, Marco Rubio, who might have political ambitions in 2028 also. You have to wonder how much of this is orchestrated. And one thing I want to add here is, under the Constitution, and I know the United States government doesn't abide by or is directed by the United States Constitution whatsoever, the vice president isn't beholden to the ideas of the president. He's not even a cabinet level official, and that didn't happen until kind of the mid-20th century that the vice president was considered a cabinet level official. They're there to be the president of the Senate and break ties. That's essentially it under the Constitution. There's also amendments, of course. He takes the presidency when the president is dead, etc. There's other stipulations, but under the original Constitution, he's not beholden to the ideas of the presidency. And we used to have vice presidents that actually resigned from office over things as serious as a war. John C. Calhoun stepped down under Andrew Jackson because of the nullification crisis and the imposition of force, the Force Act that was going to send federal troops in to enforce the federal tariff of 1832 on South Carolina. Well, J.D. Vance is not the kind of man that would that would choose principle over his political ambitions. I think we need more of that spirit in Washington. We're not going to get it, but it's not up to the vice president to just endorse the opinions of the president. That has only been caused through kind of decades of precedent. It's not part of the American political system.
He wanted to be the face of the peace deal, not the face of the war, so that he would have an excuse for all of the problems it's going to cause. And so now that the MOU has utterly collapsed, now he is going to catch the blame, not only for the war's beginning, but also the war's resumption. People are going to say, you didn't prevent the war, and by the way, you also failed to end the war too.
Yep.
You couldn't stop Trump from getting us into the Iran war, and when you tried to put your face all over the peace deal, you couldn't get the deal either. So what good are you? And the number one beneficiary is going to be Marco Rubio. If you've been paying attention, for whatever reason, Marco Rubio has not been blamed for any of this. Rubio is the Secretary of State. He's also the National Security Advisor. He should be blamed for it. It's his job. The Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor should be one of the principal actors in our foreign policy as we carry out this war in Iran. And yet, for some reason, our National Security Advisor, Secretary of State, fully loaded diplomat, is for whatever reason not seen as one of the major parties to the conflict. Instead, he's getting the credit for our far more successful Latin American file. He's getting the credit for Southern Spear. He's getting the credit for extraditing Maduro. He may get the credit if or when we're able to impose our will on Cuba. And so our far more successful Caribbean Latin American file is going to be all him. And our disaster of a Middle Eastern file is going to fall on JD Vance.
Honestly, bro, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, making sense. I feel like the Cuba situation. Look, I'm not saying I'm right. Don't quote me saying I'm right. I'm not saying this is a fact. I'm just telling you my opinion. This situation, I feel like the Cuba thing. Yeah, the national security going to get more credit because Iran situation is a way bigger deal. So like when it first started, it was always Trump and JD Vance and not who Israel dude. The face of everything. It's always them, the face of everything. Or before the war even really got like prolonged, it was we'll be in and out, blah blah blah. We already got Venezuela president. We already killed Iran leaders. It's gonna be done. You know, I'm the greatest president in the world. I got the greatest vice president in the world. The United States, the greatest military in the world, which it is in the world, and we will go in and get out. So I don't think if that really would have happened, they would never give the national security guy any credit at all. Literally at all. It would all been JD Vance and Trump. But it didn't go that way. So now he's still not getting no credit, but it all gonna fall on JD Vance and Trump. Now that's how I see it.
And so this is why over the past couple of weeks, Vance threw himself in front of Islamabad, threw himself in front of Switzerland. He wanted to be the face of the MOU. What was Rubio doing in the meantime? Rubio was holding a negotiation between Israel and Lebanon at the State Department. And whereas Vance was in Qatar trying to sell Americans on this deal and trying to sell Americans on giving Iran $3 billion and sell Americans on making peace with Iran and normalizing relations. And
I mean, I don't blame. Now, okay, I agree with giving Iran money. I agree with it. Now, I think we should give Iran money. I think we should unfreeze. I think for a better relationship, unfreeze their money, give them money for everything we destroyed. Not everything, but to help them get their country back going because a lot of innocent lives have been affected by Israel and us, and by America too, for us supporting Israel. So yeah, I think we should give money back, yes, and unfreeze their funds. Yes, I think we should do that, yes. But I also think that we need to take away nuclear arms, and Iran can't have nukes. I agree with that. I agree Iran cannot have nukes. But yeah, I think we should give them money, though.
we can trust them. Rubio was at the State Department making a deal with our allies, Israel and Lebanon.
Okay, so here's where I'll disagree a little bit with Nick. Not fully, but partially. Rubio's going to be tarnished by this war, too, no matter how well the Venezuela operation and whatever happens in Cuba seems like they're setting up a shadow regime change operation and embargo that's really destroying the lives of civilians there. But if there's a regime change there, you know, what have you. But Rubio is part of this administration, too. And not only that, he's the most powerful figure in this administration. He's both the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor, the only one to do that since Kissinger. Also a very powerful figure in his own time. And that negotiation that he was kind of brokering in Washington, D.C. between Israel and Lebanon, that's part of the tanking of the Iranian MOU. They said they signed a ceasefire, but Israel remained emphatic. It's staying in Lebanon. It's not just staying, it's still annexing the territory. Smotrich and Ben-Gvir boast about that all the time, but it's pressing further inward. They're not retreating. They weren't abiding by point one of the MOU. And Marco Rubio orchestrating that arrangement is part of the problem that tanked this. So he will be tarnished by this war as well. He will also be tarnished because he came out there and admitted to the public that, well, Israel drew the United States into this war, essentially, on one of the first days when he explained to the press as well, we got word that they were going to launch these strikes against Iran, and we decided to join because our assets would be imperiled in the region. And what they mean by assets are actually strategic liabilities, foreign U.S. bases there, you know, staffed with soldiers, filled with soldiers in the region for Israel's territorial ambitions. So he will be tarnished by this too, no matter how much they tried to pin the failure on Vance. I truly don't believe that Marco Rubio is going to be able to tell voters that, no, I was against this thing the whole time. He's part of the problem. He never saw a war he didn't support.
And Rubio went to the Gulf and was getting tough on Iran. He said, oh, Iran is worried about Lebanon's sovereignty. Well, then stop giving money to Hezbollah. Iran wants to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Well, we want freedom of navigation. And so in a way, the peace process is becoming a battleground for a proxy war between Rubio and Vance. Rubio and Vance are selecting different parts of the peace process, the parts which they think will confer upon them the biggest political benefits in 28. Rubio thinks that by talking tough and being the neocon, I don't trust the Iranians. The Iranians need to get out of Lebanon before Israel does. Here's our deal between Israel and Lebanon. And steering clear of the bad stuff, he thinks he's going to be seen as the seasoned diplomat. He's going to be the more effective politician. And Vance knows he's getting blamed for all this. If his lane, running for president, is winning over the people that don't like the war, the Tucker Carlson wing, he knows he can't hold that lane while being blamed for the war. He's going to try to take credit for solving it and revolutionizing the relations between the U.S. and Iran with some kind of peace deal. And that's why,
in my opinion, man, in my opinion, how I will approach this, I don't think we need to approach this in a way. I don't think we need to approach this in an aggressive way, in an aggressive tone, in an aggressive manner. Hold on. I don't think we need to address this in an aggressive manner at all. I think we need to make peace with Iran. Yeah, I think we need to make peace with Iran. I think we need to, tell Israel to back out of Lebanon. I think we need to back out, stay by border, but back out, fall back. I think we need to, just at least try to make. I don't think we ever even tried peace in the Middle East. At least can we have more manpower? We were stronger than them. So we can at least be like, you know what, yeah, we back out. Just for our economy's sake. Oh, yeah, we back out, we do better oil trade, we get freedom. And just do a ceasefire for a year or two. Just, okay, they do a ceasefire for a year or two. Yeah, they're going to restock on military. Yeah, they're going to restock on weapons. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to restock. But at least, give it, a break.
the two are, in a way, sabotaging each other and fighting each other as the diplomatic process works out. So that's the other angle. The MOU falls apart, and maybe the biggest loser is J.D. Vance. Because now he went double or nothing, and he lost. He's going to get blamed for not being able to stop the war. Yep. He's going to be blamed for failing to end the war. And what's that going to look like in 9 months, 12 months, when he gets asked on the debate stage by a journalist, hey, man, what's going on? We saw you tried to stop the war, then you went into hiding. You tried to end the war, and it totally failed. You went on the morning shows and tried to sell us on this deal, which was a giveaway to Iran, and they started closing the strait anyway, so you're an idiot. That's how it's going to go.
Yeah, likely how it's going to go. But I think that both Rubio and Vance are going to be tarnished by this. Their close associations with this policy are kind of unavoidable because of how much they've attached themselves to Trump, how much the entire Republican Party has attached itself to Trump, where, yeah, the corporate media is not going to tell the truth about this issue. They're not going to pin the blame on either Vance or Rubio necessarily because they always wanted this. And the administration working behind the scenes with Netanyahu always wanted this. But both are tainted by this. Both are part of the same administration, orchestrating in some ways different ends of the same diplomatic engagements, with Rubio in Washington and Vance in Islamabad, Qatar, and Switzerland. But neither of them can claim that they were opposed to this thing, that they've solved this thing, and this thing may go on and linger on and cause economic catastrophe. Even Trump himself, just a few weeks ago, warned that the strategic oil reserve was close to depletion, that it had something like 4 weeks left. And he said that like 2 weeks ago. So what does that mean that he's restarting it? Now, I do think there's something to the cutthroat type of politics interfactionally that are playing out here to some extent. That is true, but I don't think either of these gambits will work. The American people will feel the ramifications of this war. They already are, with gas prices and economic uncertainty and debt and inflation, and the real prospect that interest rates will be hiked in the next year. A serious threat to people that are trying to own homes, fund their businesses, expand, etc. That's a real threat to Americans, and many of which can't afford basic necessities right now because Washington always chooses Israel above the constituent base in the United States. So this is how it's going to play out. I do think Vance is very tarnished and in many ways looks a lot worse now because of the crumbling of the MOU that he tried to sell than before that. But he already looked bad before that. So this gambit might have worked with some Americans, that J.D. Vance, if this all would have gone to his plan, the MOU sold, the MOU being supported by Vance, Trump supporting it, Trump actually using U.S. leverage to stop Israel's atrocities, its occupation of Lebanon, etc., to abide by the MOU, he could have ended up looking good from this, but it has backfired. It has backfired spectacularly, and I do believe this in some ways destroys the political ambitions of Vance. I mean, it's not only this, it's being quiet in the Epstein scandal. I have faith that he's going to have to face Palantir questions about the surveillance state and its associations with the mass aggregation of American data to the pernicious ends of the deep state. I think that the independent media is going to hold him to the fire on that, and he's not going to look good, and a lot of Americans care about that too. But it's unaffordability and spending that will be at the forefront of not only 2026 and 2028, and inflation's back up. Debt is back up, $40 trillion in debt, fighting wars while Americans languish. Not exactly the best campaign vehicle that the Republicans have to run under. And
hey, y'all, like, our economy is literally, this is what it is. This is like legit, straight up. Our economy is bad because Israel will not stop war. That's why. Well, Clarence, how do Israel play a part in this? I'm going to tell you how. We fund Israel. We pay them billions of dollars in military aid every year. So since we're doing this, we keep... Now we're in a war, and they're in a war, and we fund them. We are spending more money because we are funding their war. But if they stop going to war, that means we don't have to fund it no more. That means we get money back to the United States. Man.